Okay, why don't we just finish? Can we resume the class and we can continue page 249, the second paragraph.
Aren't we at 248?
What do you understand? Modern scholars.
Modern scholar has disagreed.
Oh, we haven't done, okay. 248, second paragraph, okay. Are you going to read it?
Okay, I'll take it. Modern scholars have disagreed on the question of whether Yogacara constitutes a true philosophical idealism, asserting that the mind only is real and that the external material world is unreal. The argument essentially turns, as Griffith has neatly put it, on the question of whether Yogacara is primarily making an epistemological point that all we have access to is mental representation, or an ontological one, that mental representation is all that exists. Certainly, Yogacara starts from the premise that the world we know, the world we live in, is strictly a mental world. Everything comes to us in the form of information or ideas. Apart from Vijnapti, there is no world, there is no experience. Equally certainly, it is saying, more than that, simply in practice, de facto, we are trapped in our own private mental world, unable to know whether or not there is in reality an external world that corresponds to our ideas about it, to our perception of it. Yogacara is not a doctrine of solipsism. Vasubandhu's Vinshatika thus attempts to argue that although objects do not exist out there apart from our perception of them, nevertheless similar past karma results in the sharing of common experiences in the present. That these experiences are simply the products of the workings of consciousness, amounting to the arising of similar pieces of information in different streams of consciousness. We are, as it were, dreaming similar dreams, just as the pieces of information that comes to us in a dream lack independent objects, so do the direct perception of our wakeful state.
You read that, thus people.
Thus people are hypnotized with the sleep arising from impressions left by the habit of false ways of thought. And as in a dream, when they see things that are unreal, so long as they do not wake up and they do not understand their non-existence. When, however, they wake up by acquiring transcendent knowledge, which is beyond thought and opposed to that same sleep, then, by the realization of the purified ordinary awareness that is gained as a consequence, they understand the non-existence of the objects of the senses.
Okay. Can we just further reading? The next one.
Yogacara thus does not appear to be agnostic about the nature of the external world. Rather, it claims to present an account of how we construct our worlds, our ideas, of how this causes us suffering, and of how we can turn this process around and escape from suffering. In other words, like all Buddhism, it presents us with an account of the Four Truths. Yogacara denies the automated, independent existence of a separate experiencing subject on the one hand, and another separate worlds out there of experienced objects. That the world appears like this is an illusion constructed out of consciousness or mind. But this is not to be taken as saying that I, the experiencing subject, somehow exists as my mind, my consciousness, while the external world of objects does not exist. It is precisely both that are automatically fictions, illusions, ideas, fabricated by mind. True, Yogacara privileges mind or consciousness in so far as it is the operation of the mind that brings about the illusion of the duality of subject and object. But mind that is not an experiencer or enjoyer of external objects is not exactly mind as we ordinarily understand it. For Yogacara, as for all Buddhist thought, it is the way things are rather than what actually is. That is crucial. The true underlying reality is thusness, tathata.
Okay. All right, any comment?
I think there's a typo on the first line of page 249.
Yeah.
How we construct our world out of idea would be making better sense.
How does the Chinese translate?它中文是翻译 The Chinese translation 我们如何建构自己的观念世界。
他就含混带过去了。呀，因为他也不确定那个字，所以他也就没有把它很确切的翻译出来。但是 hour of ideas is just not English.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
但是如果 if it's in Chinese， 它应该传说我们如何建构这个，如何建构自己，如何建构自己的，
用这些观念去建构我们的世界。
如果我们把它改成 out of idea 的话，那直接译出来就这样，就是用我们的 idea 去建构这个世界，而不是像他这样含混其辞。
我们如果如果以观念去建构这个世界，就是我们的世界，对，应该是可能是，所以看翻译还是不是那么正确哈。以我们的观念去建构我们的世界，这样 ，OK，out of ideas，OK， 好，新版的书有吗？有谁有？我这本书很旧版的，新版有没有？也是一样。哦，我记得我们上场前看到 ，I think last time we also found one typo too, maybe, right? This is not the only one.
Copyrighted 1998. I don't think there's a newer one.
No, they do. I think this your one is not the first publication.
Same thing.
1998?
Yeah. Never been revised.
I think he did revise, but anyway, it's okay. All right. Someone who can just write here. Okay, any comment? Any? Well, if no, we can continue. Okay.
In many ways, Yogacara represents the culmination of the North Indian Buddhist intellectual tradition. Its treatises set forth a full psychological theory which represents a reworking of earlier Abhidharma systems, a complete map of the path, outlining in some details the progress of calm and insight meditation, and a complex understanding of the nature of Buddhahood. As with all Buddhist thought, one should not be misled by the philosophical sophistication of Madhyamaka and Yoga Achara thought. Their teachings are not seen as mere intellectual abstraction, which to all practical intent and purposes we can forget about. The theoretical content of this system are as ever oriented towards releasing beings from suffering. For Madhyamaka, as long as we see a world of things that exist in themselves, we're trying, however subtly, to hold on to things that ultimately must slip from our grasp, and this can only cause ourselves and others sufferings. Likewise, for Yoga Achara, as long we see the world in terms of really existing experiencing subjects and really existing experienced objects, we're trapped in the world of being, grasping at their experiences as object of possession. Once more, this will only end in more suffering for all concerned. What both Madhyamaka and Yoga Achara point toward is not simply a change of intellectual view, but a radical change of heart deep within ourselves. While it is certainly the case for both Madhyamaka and Yoga Achara are concerned with the highest understanding, the perfect wisdom that penetrates directly to the way things are, they also focus on the subtlest forms of greed, the subtlest tendencies of the mind to grasp, cling, and fix, as the root of all other forms of greed. In other words, the concern is with the greed and delusion, the principal causes of suffering, and a complete letting go as its cessation.
Okay, next one.
As I have already indicated, it is important to understand in what sense the Indian authors of the Madhyamaka and the Yogacara theoretical writings are Mahayanist. Essentially, they are Mahayanist in that they privilege the path of the Bodhisattva and recognize the authority of Mahayana Sutras, but they do not reject the earlier tradition. These authors continue to operate within the existing ordination lineages of the Sangha, and when trying to justify their understanding of emptiness or the stored consciousness, they will assume appeal to the generally accepted texts of the Nikayas, Agamas, and Abhidharmas as to the Mahayana Sutra. Much of Madhyamaka and Yogacara theory represents a continuation of and development of particular lines of thought within the broad Abhidharma tradition. Abhidharma is not rejected or thrown out, rather a particular understanding of the ontology of Dharma is rejected. But although dharmas may ultimately not exist in themselves, the broad Abhidharma framework remains as the theoretical basis for understanding the workings of consciousness, for analyzing progress along the path, and for breaking down our basic attachment to itself.
Okay, now this is how we end the chapter on one of the very important branch of the Mahayana school, the Yogacara. Yes, no comment? Okay, if we know, we can continue.
I mean, one comment I just really like how he mentioned that this Madhyamaka school and also Yogacara school, they don't reject the earlier writings, because sometimes that's the feeling I get from some of the, especially the later Chinese Mahayana writings. Some of them do reject, like the works of, even the works of Abhidharma is rejected somehow.
Now, those are the modern writing. It's not Xuanzang Fashi for sure. We know Xuanzang Fashi doesn't reject that. We know. I cannot argue with some other. I mean, if we all know the Xuanzang Fashi is a well learned, and we also know like Paramata also he doesn't reject that because he translates some of the Agama, and we also know who are even. If you look at the Kumarajiwas, when he write the meditation text, so all this is from Agama. So no, I mean the other I cannot talk about. This is and we also cannot base on because people writing on it that they think that he's really thinking that way. Some in the modern scholar, not scholar, maybe modern monk. Yeah, some people are doing that. I don't know. I know about that case, but I mean it's very hard to say. I guess certainly. If you are well read it, you know that all the discussions are still based on the early text and still based on the Abhidharma, whether you agree totally or don't agree totally, it's certainly. I think that lots of people, they don't have that kind of training. That is very important. This is why we need a discussion, because you must build up this kind of training. So it's like not saying that, oh, I'm Mahayana, so this is not our text. Oh, I'm Yogacara, so then the other text is none of my business. No, I mean, if you are not, you are just you know what I'm saying. This certainly is not the best of the attitude of study. Yeah, I mean, I would say that way maybe.
And the other thing is, I think when studying those systems, it's very important to understand what is the point they're trying to make. Like what type of issue are they trying to make at their time of publication, because Madhyamaka certainly is addressing some issue in the Abhidharma, because some people do have some grasping on the notion of swabhava. So it's trying to answer that question. And Yogacara maybe is responding to Madhyamaka in some way. And I think this holds true for many disciplines of study in medicine, in philosophy, and also in Buddhism. So if we just pick up one book and just say this book is like the only text we need to read, it's very, very dangerous.
I do have a question. In terms of the evolution of the Madhyamaka and Yoga Achara, it's really evolved from the northern Indian, the Savastivadins Abhidharma. Can we understand it that way?
Not only Sarvastivada, but it's very close to that, because even the, what we call this Samitiya school is highly influenced them too.
Not so much of the...
No, but their system are very similar to Sarvastivada. You could argue it that way. No? Certainly it's quite different from a Pali, yeah. But don't forget, even in Sri Lanka, they were Mahayana Buddhism, they were just been destroyed. And the text saying that the Yogacara, one of the important texts, Lankavatara, arriving in Lanka, Sri Lanka. So it shows that, something about it's believed that the Buddha actually he went to Sri Lanka to preach this Yogacara. And Xuanzang Fashi, the very famous story, many times he went to go to Sri Lanka. Even though he had finished his study in India, so in Nalanda, but he still think that Sri Lanka is one of the very important to study Yogacara school that you cannot ignore. That's why he definitely need to go. But he was stopped by many people because that time Sri Lanka still have war. and that don't go. And at the end, he gave up. Actually, this one thing he feels so regret he couldn't go to Sri Lanka. During his time, 7th century, the Mahayana Buddhism in Sri Lanka is very, very, very popular, even in the. But if that's something about the Theravada is that. I want to say that just in terms of the story in Theravada, that's why I say it's very important to learn history. They actually, if you say that, do they have a war, not war, the sectarian fighting among Buddhism? It happened in Sri Lanka, but when one king become in favor of Mahayana or Cherry, according to the Theravada way of saying that they've been suppressed and destroyed, and suppressed, basically not destroyed. But that's okay. I mean, this is by one source, but maybe for sure they were suppressed. But then later on, when the Theravada become power and the king was in favor of them, and they destroyed the whole Mahayana. The whole Mahayana was die. You know. That's why. You could understand nowadays when you understand that Theravada is the in terms of the what do you call it, a scholastic study, or in terms of the anyway study. I have a term. It doesn't come to my mind now. So they're well known. What should be put away, not to discuss about, so that people will easily fall into the Mahayana concept. For example, the Swapower concept is not in Theravada, the Abhidhamma. They know very well. They cannot talk about that. If they talk about that, then there's a lot of big problems come along. You know. There was some actually study about the Abhidhamma in Pali also. They suspect, especially when you read this Abhidhamma in the commentary, they suspect actually they well known a lot of Mahayana or they already concept. Or the Adi, for sure they know the other system of Abhidhamma, and they started to, the neglect, or started actually to, maybe even they might have those terms and they put that away. And now when you read the Visuddhimagga, you also find that Visuddhimagga mention about these practices of like Senjin Dao and Tuijin Dao and so forth. That means the progress way or decrease. That is certainly, it's very much taught in Abhidhamma in other school. I mean the Sarvastivada school. But that also, unfortunately, even that you still in Agama also. Or Agama have always talked about that. But in Nikaya, you have one or two sutras also mention those things. But Visuddhimagga never want to mention it. But he know that if you don't mention it, mean you ignore the Nikaya too. So they only mention one or two lines. Only that's it. But that kind of path, Senjin Dao and those kind of the statement actually is highly discussed in the other Abhidhamma. I know. Okay. All right. Why don't we just go the other? We can at least read. Maybe hopefully we can finish this. Yeah, the Dhammadipa. Yes, and we come to the other, one of the big school too, that which actually almost influenced the whole China, I would say, the Dhammadipa. Okay.
Mm. There is suffering, and the root defilements of greed, aversion, and delusion cause being sufferings in all its forms. The cessation of these defilements bring about the cessation of all that sufferings. This is a statement of the first three of the Four Noble Truths. A statement is in primarily negative terms, but we can state the matter in more positive terms. It is not only the cessation of greed, aversion, and delusion that brings about the cessation of suffering, but the positive cultivation of wisdom, loving kindness, and generosities. And this is the fourth noble truth. It is the development of such qualities that constitutes the path that leads to the cessation of suffering.
We can read one more paragraph. Yeah.
Another way of talking about the progress of arising of suffering and its cessation is in terms of the formula of dependent arising. Again, the usual statement is couched in negative terms. The progressive cessation of various kinds in the
Various no kinds, various links.
various links in the chain ends in the cessation of suffering. But we saw too that this could be stated possibly in terms of the progressive arising of various qualities beginning with faith and ending in knowledge and freedom. For the ordinary unawakened person, the root causes of suffering, defilement, kilesa, of greed, aversion, and delusion, do battle with root causes of awakening, the good qualities of wisdom, loving kindness, and generosity. We are internally in conflict. But this does not mean that we should conceive of ourselves as merely a battleground for a conflict that may go either way. For although this may be how things appear in the short term, it is according to the teaching of the Buddha, as presented in Nikaya Agamas, our better nature that reflect our true nature. The mind is naturally radiant, but becomes defiled by adventitious defilements. At heart, we are not Maras, but Buddhas, and this is true of the being that is Mara himself. This way of thinking is part of the common heritage of all Buddhism, but in Mahayana sutras, it finds expression and is developed in the notion of the Tathagata Garbha, the womb or embryo of the Tathagata. Thus, in the Mahayana Tathagata Garbha Sutra, the Buddha observes. Shall we continue?
Yeah, when I regard.
When I regard all beings with my Buddha eye, I see that hidden within the
Classes. No, Claire.
Of greed, desire, anger, and stupidity, there is seated augustly and unmovingly the Tathagata wisdom, the Tathagata's vision, and the Tathagata's body. All beings, though they find themselves with all sorts of cliques, has the Tathagata Garbha that is eternally unsullied, and that is replete with virtues no different from my own.
Okay. The next two paragraphs, do you want to read it? Yeah.
The basic treatise of the Tathagata Garbha tradition of thought is the Travagga, also known as the
Tantra.
Tantra, attributed to Maitreya Asanga. The Tathagata Garbha is an element of Buddhahood. Buddha, the status, at the heart of our being, our intrinsic Buddha nature. Although some Mahayanas writings acknowledge the possibility of beings who are eternally cut off from the possibility of Buddhahood, the prevailing tradition, particularly important in East Asian Buddhism and reaching its most developed statement in Dogen's Zen, is that all beings are intrinsically Buddhas.
Yeah.
The Tathagata Garbha as our internal and true nature, in contrast to illusory and ultimately unreal defilements, leads to a tendency to conceive of it as an ultimate absolutely existing thing. Mahayana Nirvana Sutra, especially influential in East Asian Buddhist thought, goes so far as to speak of it as our true self. Atman, a precise metaphysical and ontological status is, however, open to interpretation in terms of different Mahayana philosophical schools. As for the
Madhyamikas,
it must be empty of its own existence, like everything else. For the Yogacarans, following the Lankavakara, it can be identified with stored consciousness as the receptacle of the seeds of awakening. Yet the problem of the metaphysics of the Tathagata persisted and is perhaps most clearly exemplified in the Renstone Stone debate in Tibet.
Okay, all right. Any comment? Anyone thing to share about the Tathagata? We still have little time.
Can we understand a little bit about this debate in Tibet? What is it about?
It's about the self-emptiness or the emptiness of the. I think the emptiness is by itself, or the emptiness is by reference, something like that. Yeah. Anyone want to share what is the Tathagata?
It sounds to me it's weird because I heard those people, I don't think they follow completely the writings here, but they somehow believe there's a pure soul within them, so they need to clear out their defilement, and once they do that, they become a Buddha. Since everyone has that pureness inside them, that's why I've heard.
Oh, but that definitely is not the Tathagata, the real original meaning. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I know, of course, the concept is still can carry in a different scenario. It's because the Tathagata certain thing that is the concept of what impure actually is illusionary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because if you follow the Yogacharan idea of you have that, I don't know.
Yeah, but if in that way you could understand from Yogacara, yes, there's impure there. The cluster, because the manas, okay, the cluster manas 就是 what's that in Chinese? 污染室 哈 or mono 室吧，或者你污染室 哈 So it's because of that mono 就是 manas 其实 but we usually say 污染 cluster. So because of the cluster manas, so yeah, you could say that there's the defilements, and then you certainly still need to work on that, right? But in the Tathagata, no, the defilement itself is the illusion.
So, if you say the two school, by its nature, that means defilement is or Tathagata Garba is the nature.
Well, the Tathagata is the state of the Tathagata, right? I mean the Rulai, and then it's kind of like ontological understand these kind of natures there. Otherwise, nobody can become a Tathagata. So without this kind of the nature, like it's almost like if you put it in Abhidhamma way of understanding, it's almost like if the earth had no such a nature of earthness, then you cannot be earth, right? So, and then that's must be. So everyone as a being must have the nature of that. Now, the problem is then why people cannot be a Tathagata is because they have a lot of wrong understanding. I mean, this is also accepted by the Buddhism. avijja, the not understanding, and then the not understanding is actually that nature is there, and you still take the other, which is unnecessary thing, as the true nature. So that's why then you missed the point of the Tathagata, that you have the true nature there. So,
But does
for example, if I take anger as a real anger, then I'm anger. But if I don't see anger as the real thing, it's no such a thing called anger. I know there's a paradoxical kind of statement, but in a way, anger is not the real thing, and it's because the real thing is only I'm the Buddha nature, so the anger is not there.
But do they have any specific technique or any practice to overcome the illusions?
Oh, that's how I say infinite Zen Buddhism. They do. Of course they believe they think that they do. But I don't mean that Zen represented the Dhammadipa, because if you look at the Zen history, actually, accordingly, what we know is that when Bodhidharma arrived to China, he doesn't use the Dhammadipa. He was using Lanka Avatara. Everybody know now, Lanka Avatara is Yogacharan school. Okay. But somehow Chinese think that they have, of course Chinese would not believe they were influenced by Taoism or what, they don't think that. Of course they would not agree, okay? And how the scholar later on think is different. What is that? What is a sound?
No idea.
Yeah, but for sure that they would not agree with that, okay? But what I want to say is that, however, they certainly, later on, all their concepts are highly influenced by the Dhammadipa. So, because of the Mahabharata Sutra, Da Bo Niebban Jin, okay, in Chinese. At the time, if you are really study Buddhism during the Tathagata time, if you have read this Mahabharata Paramita Sutra, a lot of Mahabharata Paramita content is borrowed from the Nikayas, okay? But they only put some other thing as a Bodhisattva understanding, but the conclusion could be different. But the whole content is almost the same, but only the conclusion is a little different. The end of it. Yeah.
What argument is this school trying to make?
I said that the argument is that it's just people have the ignorance, and the ignorance don't understand there's a pure nature there. And when you always forget your pure nature, let me give you one, I love it also. Actually, it does help me sometimes. I think, because why we still include them as a Buddhist school, because they are not saying something really not school, but people could misunderstood it. The problem is that Dhammadipa is never been understood as non-Buddhist school, but only thing that is very dangerous, because if you don't understand well, it can become like a Hindu Brahma.
Yeah, because it sounds very much like an Atma idea.
Only that, but however, that still is understood as a Buddhist school, because if you really understand it, it doesn't mean they didn't talk like a Buddhism, right? The content is like Buddhism. One of the similar I like very, very well a lot is, for example, as a host and a guest. If the Dhammadipa as a host, like I'm the host in a family, right? Then when you come to my house, how long are you going to stay in my house? Say that 2 weeks, right? I don't like you because you are very dirty, or you are very messy, you eat all my stuff, you are very stingy, you don't help me. We have many problems there, right? And if you forget you are the host, and what happened? You get very angry, you get very disappointed, you get very, a lot of defilements comes, because you take this guest as your host. If you think, it's just 2 weeks. They are here, they stay 2 weeks. Whatever they did, when they left, this is still my house, I don't care. No problem, right? I just smile all the time, because I understand I'm a host. I mean, if I always understand the Tathagata, that's the only one. Whatever is manifested here, the guests stay here for 2 weeks, but they are messy, they are bad, they didn't clean my toilet, they didn't flush the toilet, whatever. I still.
It's very convenient.
No, they do have very complicated theory. I'm just giving you the main understanding, then you can understand the approach very well. A lot of people, I think, I sound like criticizing. I think actually the Dhammadipa is really powerful way of understanding, but the problem some people represent it the wrong way, I guess. So it's very powerful to just say all this, for example, even meditator. We do have this concept too when you come to a very deep meditation. Sometimes when you have this, the desire comes to you, you want a comfort, right? You have these agitations, the defilement, what we call the five nivarana, what do you call five hindrances. If you understand this is just the illusion, but I'm just a meditator. I can meditate as a pure meditation. I'm not asking anything, but just a pure meditation. Then whatever this is just like a smoke. Fly away, right?
Right, that's very convenient. That's what I'm saying. You know, if you have that idea, then everything is easy.
If they come to, in historical actually, this school come quite late after the Yogacara. They must actually come up something they think, they fed up with the Yogacara, too complicated also, with all these so Abhidhamma and...
It's very complicated.
It is.
Yoga Achara is very complicated.
No, because they usually, in order to understand that, by Famima learn 100 Dharmas, mean you must understand the Saravastivada, 75 Dharmas in detail, and then you... So now you come to something, okay, if the Buddha nature is such a way, and the Buddha, of course, in somehow they also believe, I read some of the sutra, I cannot remember now. I think they also argue that, at the Buddha sometimes they can point up some probably problem and they immediately solve the problem. That's because the Buddha can nicely introduce the Tathagata's problem, saying that you are good already, why you worry those things, for example, There's no such a thing. It's almost like emptiness also. That, okay, if you worry about dukkha, then you have craving for the dukkha, and the dukkha was not real. In the Yogacara school, you could say the dukkha was parinibbata, meaning that it's your consciousness created, right? As a vijnana, something that represents to you. But it's not really necessarily. But in Dhammadipa, so it's a different way of saying that those are not real ones.
It sounds like almost like a popular Buddhism nowadays, and it's
no, I think the problem is because some people can take it. Everyone want the easy way, but they but still, like in Zen, even later on they may take it in a more like, I would take it more like extreme way. But still Zen, you need to sit there and understand that. And they still talk about meditation too. Yeah.
But for me, it's just like it doesn't provide more content. It's just like reframing the perspective. It's what it seems like to me.
It's all the mind's working. So if the mind is set right, then everything is easy.
No, the thing I think he said very well in a way. He did lay it out already. We usually, even in early Buddhism, Madhyamika is a kind of like extreme way of early Buddhism. Don't think this, don't think that, don't, right? But then in the Yogacara, say everything is good, nice, but still there's a problem, right? But now we have another kind of attitude. It means there's no problem.
It's not a problem.
You don't think about the problem now. You think about the positive side, That now you can understand why some Americans really like it. Yeah. Okay. Yes.
师父，哪一个宗派是那个就是 practice 这个如来藏？
I'm not sure. Of course, I accordingly believe it's Zen. They do that.
禅宗啊。
Yeah, later Zen. As I say, the earlier one, if you can see very clear, because usually there's understand why it mentioned like this. What kind of text they use to infer you as the what is the text? Based on what text? To discuss the practice maybe. If you're based on the Lankavadara, it should be a Yogacara school. But later, it looks like it shifts because I guess because the Dhammadipa system actually is well established in China at that time. Because Paramata, Paramata Zhendi, actually he's very interesting. He's Abhidhamika, but certainly his idea is very close to the Dhammadipa. Okay, and Paramata actually had highly influenced. He is also Yogacara also, but he certainly promulgated the Dhammadipa. I mean, the Yogacharing the Dhammadipa concept too.
还有另外一个问题哦，在那个252页这边，他说，second paragraph, second line, attributed to Maitreya Asanga.
Yeah.
那这个 Maitreya 是指未来佛的 Maitreya 还是 somebody else?
Well, that's I mean, of course, in tradition, either Tibetan tradition or the Chinese, always refer to Maitreya as the one who live in Tusita. Okay, I mean, at least there's no clear saying that he's not the one from Tusita. So it's always indicate or always at least how general understand as Tusita. But for scholar, not necessarily. For scholars, sometimes we have to know the word Maitreya could be sometimes referred to really there's a monk called Maitreya. But sometimes it can refer to the one that was believed that still live in Tusita.
因为它有一个 slash asanga，那 asanga 是一个认识。
No, the slash is because if you understand the Maitreya as the one who in Tusita, it's because Asanga learned from Maitreya in the heaven Tusita.
Oh.
So, but if you want to say who's the author, so depend what you mean. The author could be the one in the heaven or the one who written here now as Asanga, Okay, because according to the Uttara Sutra, it's the text actually is being taught by the Maitreya, and Asanga write it down or record it. But in scholarly, because sometimes we don't, as a scholar, don't like to put a mystical image as an author. That's why.
Oh, okay.
But if you understand Maitreya as not really the heaven one, then you could say the author is Maitreya.
Oh, okay.
But
Okay.
why in Chinese Tripitaka, the Garbha was the Ratana Gota Vibhanga was put into Yogacara section. It doesn't have its own section, but its compendium was.
I don't know them because I never studied in a Chinese understanding way. I don't know. Maybe they did, or maybe it's sometimes it's arguable. Maybe it's Baojilun, Yixin Baojilun is supposed to be the Dhammadipa. It's very clear. Just say the name is very clear. Yixin Baojilun. No, I don't know. This is very important when you go to open a school. That's why sometimes how you define that, it still can change if you don't understand this kind of system and you don't, for example, you think, oh, now I'm teach the Dhammadipa, then I'm use Madhyamika to teach the Dhammadipa, and you could say that. I don't mean you cannot, but you have to tell what actually Indian didn't do that or what Tibetan didn't do that. But I do it because I think fine. But the problem you cannot just this is the Dhammadipa. You see. When you see emptiness, then you see the Dhammadipa. I mean, okay, well, I don't know. Yeah. So that's why you definitely must have. I guess when you study Buddhism, it's good that you have this system. It's not saying that which is right or wrong, but you certainly have clear understanding what's the whole thing going on, and what in the history in the past, why Asanga was doing this, why Vasubandhu was doing that, and why Nagarjuna was doing that. And what the Nagarjuna influenced, how the later on Dhammabala and so on. And some of them, of course, it makes their idea too, but they still learn this one system first and then it makes the other system, into. And that's why they write a book, because that's why we only read a book, because they tell you something they found among the different schools, how they understand this kind of thing. It should be, You're right. But when you read, you definitely know they know that school very well. They understand this very well. So.
You will not answer my question. My question is why in Chinese Tripitaka there's no section for Tathagarbha? Like for example.
What do you mean by a section? I don't understand.
Like for example, in Chinese Abhidhamma there's a section for 瑜伽部，或者是以坛藏，或者是经藏。
No, that's the Tripitaka will belong to what section is done by Japan in those days. It's not by China.
Okay, but why is...
You ask them, I don't know.
If even Dogen's is
because
emphasize on this.
Yeah, because I said that in early time they always mix up the Dhammadipa with the Yogacara. They understand in general Yogacara means the Dhammadipa. Okay? It's just a further explanation of what is the stored consciousness. And the stored consciousness is the Dhammadipa. That's the earlier way to understand, but definitely it's not the Indian way of understand. Okay?
You mean they put together?
Yeah.
So they put
They understand the Dhammadipa means the stored consciousness.
They put that compendium under the Yogacara section.
But for sure, the Tibetan know that. That is not the way to, yeah. And that is not the Indian way, understand. So in other words, if you start to talk about Yogacara, mean you talk about the Dhammadipa. And ultimately the stored consciousness is the Dhammadipa. 就是第八识就是如来藏是，是， yeah.
但是如来藏的人不会说。
No, but then in India they don't do it that way. In Tibet they don't do it that. I just say in China somehow. That's why I say the system how they been introduced in there, But not that they don't aware, but because why Xianzhuang Fashi certainly know, because in the first chapter in Chen Wei Shi Run, he tried to tell the people already, don't mix up the Dhammadipa with the stored consciousness. He said it many times. Why? When he said that? Because in China the time is always do that again and again. Okay. Okay, all right. Thank you for your attending the class, and good that we finish our almost our Buddhist doctrine. And the last thing actually is about your geographical. I guess this is a very simple thing, especially nowadays we travel a lot of places. But I'm sure that this maybe within 1 or 2 classes we can end all the whole thing, and we need to discuss what we're going to read next. All right, we do the transfer marriage, and we'll be end the class.
Diyo vivatantu sappaloko vinasatu mate bhavang tvantarayo sukhidika yogo bhavang. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.